Nicholas Zal, Carl Fabian, Brendan Knapp, and then Keno. And then we'll finish off with Hazel, just in case you want to ask 5 questions. Guys online, there is no online questions. So let's just work together there, please. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
We had a very tight first half, and he scored immediately in the second half. But then there was a period where the Sharks, I think, scored 3 tries.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm going to give you a whole summary of what you saw the game. We started off well, started the second half as well as we did in the first half. I thought we defended the first half really well as well. I mean, the fact that it was only 10-7 says a lot, because I think it must have been about 80% territory and position in that first half as well. So, I think I wasn't too concerned in the first half, because I thought with all the ball they had, they didn't really take advantage of it, and all the territory they had, they never took advantage of it. So the message at halftime was, we get to 60 minutes, and then hopefully they'll make their changes, and then we'll put on our bench. And credit to them, then they put their bench on, because maybe it worked in their favour that they rotated, because they had so many yellow cards. They were reasonably fresh, and that takes nothing away from the fact that we weren't our best today. I mean, that's not how we played the whole since I've been here. And that's the second time we've played the Sharks with 13 and 12 men, and we looked as though we didn't understand that we had numerical advantage. So we'll have to obviously sit with them during the week and just go through the scenarios of where I think we could have been a little bit smarter.
Jacob, it seems to be some of these games, I mean, it felt very much like the Saints game as well. You guys got into the right positions, you had all the scoring chances, and then they almost sucker punched you there 1-2 through your own mistakes. Twice,
yeah. And the one thing, Brenda, which again, I'm telling you something you would have seen. They got like 7 rugby players at the back there. Once they made line breaks, it wasn't like we could catch them. And generally what's happened against other teams is we've had the pace to either scramble and catch them from behind. If you remember the one time we got put away and Devon got caught by Yaw Penxe as well from the side. That generally hasn't happened. They scored long range tries, and the reason for that is because they outpaced us, and there's no substitute for speed. It was that's the frustrating thing, because once they got behind us on a line break, we've generally been good enough to catch them from behind, but we didn't do it today. So we have to obviously have a look and see how we're going to be able to stop teams from making line breaks and scoring against us.
The other thing is, obviously you guys seem to struggle to knock out the teams last week, the Stormers, this one. Yeah. Is that a concern, or is that just part
No, it's a concern. Of course it's a concern. I mean, just before half time we kicked it out 3 times into the corner there, and then they turned them all over at the end there again. It's the third maul of in succession. And generally what happens is you would think that after 3 you're gonna put them away, and we didn't, and they turned it over at the end there. They stopped our maul, we knocked it on, same as the other one 5 meters from the line in the second half. We also again had an opportunity there, not once, twice, maybe 3 times, and we didn't finish it off. So it is a concern, because when you play against these teams, they don't give you freebies. When you get there, you've got to take that chance. So it's not a concern as in, but it is something that we're going to have to look at and see whether we didn't have a goal kicker today, and I'm meaning it in like a recognised goal kicker. So going to the corner was always going to be something that we had to be sharp on.
Just would it be unfair to say that and I know you haven't played a lot at home this year, but for the season, that you guys almost put together better performances away from home at Loftus, which is very strange.
Yeah. Well, not. Yeah. It is strange, but I mean, it's not something I'm not used to. I mean, I was at the Brumbies, we won 11 of our away games. I think it was a record for Super Rugby. So, that's obviously a thing that you try and do well, is when you play away, that you also can play your best rugby. And it is disappointing for us at home, and it's disappointing for our supporters. And you know, that's supporters want to come and see the team win, and they have seen them win here many times, and I'm talking about percentage-wise as well. So when you don't get it right like that, it's not just the loss; it's the performance, and it's the the opportunity that you miss of getting more supporters to come and watch us.
Jake, this loss won't define your season, but obviously there is stuff that you really need to fix.
Yeah.
How do you go about calming the players down? Because obviously I don't think they're in a very good spot.
No.
And fix it.
Yeah, well, Cole, I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, that's probably why coaches get picked to coach. And yes, they will be down, and there's a positive to that, because it means that it hurts them, and it means something to them. And all we've got to do is just meet on Monday. There's nothing you can do. It's not going to define us. I mean, we've lost games along the year and still got to the playoffs and still got to the end of the competition. And that's part of the coaching that we're going to have to talk about. And it's that's why we sit with the players. I think no one's blaming anybody. I mean, we had our chances and played against 13, then 12 men, and then we got a scrum penalty and turned it over by giving a penalty away, and that again, kicked in the corner, didn't score. And there are so many things I think we can still improve, and that'll be at the back end of the competition. We just been, I suppose, been a little bit naive in thinking it was just going to happen. I think the one thing I wore this today because it's an old school Bulls jersey, and we did everything old school Bulls well. We scrummed and we mauled them to pieces. We can't be known as a team that just scrums and mauls everybody and then not get a result. So that'll be my message on Monday, is that I just don't want us to be a team that goes into our shell and we always think we're going to scrum penalties and maul penalties and therefore we'll win the game, because the rest of the game today was the part that let us down.
You mentioned the speed or the lack of speed on your side. Is it something you can coach, or is it?
No, I think we'll have to reselect, and as well, it is what it is too, to be fair. I mean, they did select a really quick backline. I mean, if you go man for man, that is the strength of that team. Grant Williams is really quick. Yaw Penxe is really quick. Renzo Julie is really quick. Lekanya Ams played outside centre, which means, and he's played wing. So I mean, it just shows you they've got genuine speed. And once that ball bounced and it bounced incorrectly, and it went into their hands, then it became a foot race. And I mean, I can't remember when last we were exposed from 50 yards out by sheer pace. And that, as I said, that's something we're going to have to look at, selection-wise, combinations-wise. But we also can only control what you can control, Cole. I mean, there's certain guys that are out. I sort of look at, and I think maybe Cameron's speed as a loose forward is something we missed today, because he maybe have closed holes somewhere else before it opened up as wide as it did. But that's just the way it is. We now realise without those guys that played last week, Marcel and Cameron and those sort of players that played last week. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the other guys who played. It's just there's something that was different today. And I mean, it's quite interesting, because when I came to get the captain's practice, I saw Frik du Preez, and he said to me, "Are we going to be alright this weekend?" And I don't know why he asked me that. I mean, he's obviously been around rugby and he understands it. And I, as I said, sort of felt for 2 days. I wonder why he asked me if we're going to be alright, because we've done quite well. But sometimes there's just a gut feeling, or there's something. I remember Henry Honeyball telling me once that it's like a black mist that comes under your door, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You can just feel it. And I'm not saying therefore we started well. We're 7-0 up. We were leading into the game, so I can't say that it was something that was tangible. But maybe it was not 100% right this week.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
What way the team dominated scrums, conditions, even the balls for the better part of the game? How frustrating was it that it just simply could not be turned into tangible points?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what I mean. But I'm going to go back to what I said to you. We don't want to be known as a team that can just maul and scrum. I mean, you've heard me many times say that the one thing the Bulls need to do is that's always been given. You go through the olden days and you look at through the old videos, mauling and scrumming was always something they were very strong in. And I wanted to make sure that when we got here, we added more to our game. And that's probably why I'm frustrated today, because we didn't look like a team, even against 12 or 13 players, that had enough variation. And maybe we just got sucked into thinking that every call at scrum and line-out was going to get us a win. That is, I mean, that's just, again, that's something I'm going to have to sit them down and say, you're going to have to do more than just thinking every scrum and every line-out maul is points.
And this particular result, how does it show up in the nature of South African dogs? Because one would say Team A is a favorite of Team B and the dogs. And then the end of the game just throws up a different result.
No, well, I mean, are you surprised though? That's what I'm not surprised. I mean, today the Stormers got beaten by the Lions, and who would have thought that? I mean, the Stormers have been dominating, but these derbies they're different, and it brings out the best. Some guys have been picked in the lineman camps. They go up another level. I think it's tough. I mean, I'm only saying this now while I'm thinking. Play 4 derbies in South Africa back to back is also a bit different to most other competitions, and also most of the other teams playing in this competition. I wonder, and again, I'm shooting from the hip here. I wonder if Leinster play Munster, Connacht, and Ulster on consecutive weekends, whether those games would also bring in a different result. And obviously the other franchises as well. I mean, if you think about it, these South African derbies have historically been known as the big games. I mean, that's why you see today 40,000 or whatever people came. I mean, because it's a big derby game, and that's always been part of our DNA and part of our culture in South Africa. Is when we play against each other, I mean, we don't hold back on anything. So I'm not surprised, to answer your question, I'm not surprised that derby games do give those results or those sort of performances.
You mentioned the Springbok Camp. Do they do these games now feel, they wouldn't have been the same in the past, but do they feel like quasi Springbok trunks or slash short test matches?
Well, I mean, I'd like to say no, but I mean, everyone's human. I mean, the reality is you get players for the first time getting announced to come to the camp. It's a normal thing. I mean, the first thing you do is phone your parents or your family and say, I've been selected, which means that you would think that the guy thinks this is the time that I can really make a name for myself. And that's, so as much as I'd like to tell you no, everyone gets here and still sticks to their jobs, I mean, I think it's normal that any youngster in this country gets called to a national camp. Is going to have different emotions, and I suppose they handle it differently too.
But Jake, one of the questions that I asked you this week was what were you expecting from the Sharks this weekend?
And my answer was?
And your answer, they're going to run it. So my question is, do you think, or what could you guys have done differently from a preparation point of view, or do you think it was today the lack of maybe experience or guys not, I mean, there was I think 19 missed tackles, and I think there was 19 turnovers. So I mean, those are big mistakes for a URC team, especially like the Bulls. Do you think it was outplayed by the Sharks, or do you think the mistakes that the guys made was the big?
No, I said to you, that's why I'm glad you answered. I said they're going to run and they're going to use their backs. And 2 tries came from the bounce of the ball and then a foot race between 7 backs and 7 backs. And that ball could have bounced anywhere, and for them it obviously worked in their favour. And once they got ball to run onto and they could use their pace, we were always going to be up against it. The flow of the game should never have got to that. I mean, we had them under the pump, 12, 13 guys on the field. Props had both left the field. They had no winger because they had to take someone else off because of the fact that one prop was yellow carded and the other one was injured. So there's no excuses. I mean, I can't say to you there's anything we've done this week that I would have changed, or we needed to catch the up and unders. We dropped a couple of unders. I mean, the last try came from getting bashed off the ball, in a contest. They scored. The other one got bounced on the halfway line. When it fell into someone's hands, they outpaced the outside backs and went and scored. And that is something that, as I said to you, you can't coach pace. When it's a foot race, I mean, and and you can beat the guy outside you, then we should have found ways in which we didn't create those, and that would have been to catch the up and unders, would have been to finish them off when we had the forward dominance in the scrums and the mauls, and also the field position in the second half.
And just the last question on Billy's performance today. Do you think, obviously you guys are getting flyers back now, but do you think, what's your thoughts on his
Well, the reason I
today?
took him off, guys, because he was saying to the doc that his groin is very stiff, and I just thought, again, my call. I just thought we had enough forward dominance. I had a 10 that could go to 10. You know, in hindsight, maybe I should have left him there and try to fight through this one. But how would I have known? You know, and so put Butter at 10. Butter is at 10. He's a goal kicker. The game was 10-7. You know, who knows? Maybe we win the game because he kicks a conversion and because he's on the field. Then it's a master stroke. But as it turned out, I just couldn't afford now to Billy to tell me at the end of the game he's groin sore and he's out for 2-3 weeks as well. We're not in that luxury yet where especially with the players that we don't have to our disposal now, you know.
Coach, with back-to-back derbies and the Lions coming next, do they present a different challenge versus other playing like European teams in terms of team selection?
Well, that is one thing because they know each other so well, and the other thing is they do. It's just a natural thing. Derbies, every derby game just goes up another level. So it does influence the selection, but also you learn a lot about your team because they know who you got, and you know who they got. But I mean, I don't think it's one of those where you just make 10 changes now because you still got to keep cohesive combinations, and you still got to make sure that you still can build on the things that you did well today. And then, you know, people talk a lot about, coaches talk a lot about, but our scrum line-out was outstanding. I talk about mauling. Line-out, we lost one or two vital balls when we needed to. And at the end there, we scored a try when we were dead and buried. I know they did too, but what I'm saying is it could quite easily have gone the other way. And those are the positives you can build on for next week. Is that, you know, we know we're hurting. I mean, I saw in the change room they're not happy. They don't like losing at home. They know that they had an opportunity today to jump ahead of the rest of the teams in the conference. But you know, the challenge now is, as I said to Cole, it's Monday. We got to get to work and we got to make sure we find a way, selection-wise, game plan-wise, accuracy-wise, of making sure that we're prepared for the weekend.
Coach, you came into this game having lost 3 captains.
Yeah.
How big do you feel a role that playing in a game like that, where for moments it was up for grabs, not too much in terms of points margins on either side? How big of a loss is that to not have certain figures in the team
100%.
that can drive the team forward or calm the situation
Yeah.
down?
No, you hit the nail on the head. And again, it's not pointing fingers. I mean, Reinhard Ludwig's an unbelievable leader. He didn't do anything wrong. You know, he was trying to, again, if I think about it, him running the line out and captain. And I'm only giving you the answer now. I'm not saying it's the case. Maybe I need to have rethought that. Maybe it was a bit unfair on him. Run the line out, be the captain. But, you know, who knows? In a couple of weeks' time, a couple of years' time, when he is leading the team and he's the incumbent captain and everyone goes, you know, great master stroke, then everything will be positive. I remember sitting in front of you guys and saying, Ruan Nokier's the captain. And then I picked Ulrich Lowe as the captain, and I had the same questions. You know, are you sure? And you know, so that he'll have to learn from that, and he's bright. He'll learn, and I also have to learn from that. Maybe I was you know, thinking that he'd be okay, you know, in terms of calling the line out, but he didn't have a goal kicker either, so it's quite tough on the youngster. It's not like, okay, we'll go for poles. I mean, we hit the pole with that kick. And we missed another one, and we missed touch twice. So I mean, the poor guy probably thinks, well, if I go for touch, we don't find touch. If I go for poles, we hit the pole, and if I go to the line out, we've been turned over twice. So it's not really an easy day for a captain.
And lastly for me, Coach, do you think with everything that you've mentioned about the kicking for touch, goal kicking not really working out, there is an element of control that really does bring to the team, but do you now feel as if there's no substitute for an out-and-out fly half that you can rely on to get you the points and goal kicking? And do you think it's time maybe to have the conversation with Bola Chamberlain and try to give him an extended run for him to get his confidence and feel like a Bulls fly half, an important
Yeah,
Bulls fly
I mean that is an area when. But he did. He played 30 minutes at fly half, and in those 30 minutes we went from speeding the game to losing the game. So I suppose if you wear different hats, you can say you're sure that bringing him on as a fly half and not leaving the guy who's influential on changed the game. And I mean, there's just depends on whether you see the glass half full or the glass half empty. But he's a 10, and you know, I'll have to. It's very difficult for me now to give you right. Next week we're going to do this, and we're going to bring this guy in. I mean, so many things happen injury-wise. I didn't think Cameron wouldn't play this weekend, and literally post the game that changes. So I'll sort of rethink about it tomorrow when the motion settles and the game gets re-looked at, and then we'll pick a team that I think. Not that I think, that I hope will and will be sure will be able to win the next game against the Lions.
Last questions from us, right?
Okay, Coach, you mentioned of how the Sharks had 7 players in the line.
8.
Lineup.
8.
And do you think that you were at a disadvantage in terms of the level of experience that you bring on the pitch?
You know, I've heard coaches sit there and they go, I want to tell you who we didn't have. But I mean, I can tell you who they didn't have. So it would be wrong of me to go, we missed these guys. But you're right. I mean, there were times that we looked young and naive as a group. And that is, I take that on me because that's the group I put on the field. And there's no doubt when you have Ruan Nokia running the line out and he's there, Ulrich Lowe who's another leader, and Marcel Coetzee, we have been much better. And I wonder what that game would have looked like against the same opposition. I know they can bring, but I wonder what it would look like if we had those 3 guys on the field. And I'm positive that it would have looked different. And that again, it's only a feedback on what I think we lack today. And it's no one's fault. It was the circumstance we were in.
You mentioned Billy's drawing type stuff, injury concerns.
No. And the reason I mention is, for goodness, he's probably kicked more this week at Poles, thinking that he was going to be the goal kicker than he has ever before. So, I mean, who would have thought that if he's kicking and kicking and kicking for Poles after what happened last week when he said he's going to start. And I don't think it's injured. It was just a risk. I didn't want to take a risk. And I genuinely thought that the forwards were going to be strong enough. And a 10, that is a 10, would come on and we would be able to manage the game the way we did, and we didn't. So, now we're going to have to find a way in which we regroup. That's basically it.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.